Hey John, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Thank- Thanks so much. Happy to be here, Lanier.
Alrighty, hey man, let's talk a little bit about, AI is another tool. As I, do some research, and the things you've been talking about over the years, what does it mean to think about AI as an operating system rather than just another software application?
Well, it's definitely not just a software application. At this point, software, let's define that maybe. Let's define that term, right? I mean, it is software, it really is. But there's UIs or a user interface, the things that we interact with, right? So,
Mhm.
say ChatGPT, they've got an app basically you can type and talk to them. You can load it on your browser, and that's great. And you can even download the desktop ChatGPT app, right? And so that's a good piece of software. Then behind it, you've got all this, these brains, and we call that the LLM or the large language model, right? And today, everyone's trying to figure out how to best harness these different LLMs. What is the best UI? What is the best connection of, or the best combination of all these connections to all these different LLMs? Because there's so many ones out there. And, one thing that a lot of people get wrong is they think, oh, I'll just use Claude or I'll just use ChatGPT. It doesn't really matter which one I use. Okay. Well, it actually does matter. It's not like just switching between Chrome and Safari, right? If you go to Disney.com on Chrome, you're going to see the same thing that you see on Safari. Now there might be slight variations
Right.
on, some formatting button or something like that. But for the most part, that you're seeing exactly the same thing. Going between ChatGPT and Claude or Grok is like going between CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, right? Like
Mhm.
the LLMs, the brains behind these things that are hiding underneath this chat interface, the user interface, it all feels familiar, right? It all feels similar, at least, right? But the brains behind them are dramatically different and trained based off of, the people that have created them. And so that creates a whole kind of new category of software that we're dealing with here.
Gotcha. So let's talk about, as a company, how does viewing AI as an infrastructure fundamental change leadership thinking? I work with clients in manufacturing for the past 34 years, and this is a new, paradigm shift for them. So, from your experience, how have you seen, the change in leaderships and how they use AI?
Yeah, infrastructure is a really interesting word. And let's try to define it that as well. Infrastructure is usually something you can't do without, right? Like my
Mhm.
house has, you know, you can maybe take the drywall out and that's okay. And the paint, I can switch that out. But
Mhm.
if I take away, load bearing beams, my house falls over or a room might not function as designed, right? Or if I unplug the plumbing from the street or whatever, now all of a sudden my infrastructure isn't, I can't use my bathroom or my sinks and things like that. And so infrastructure is critical to a business success. And AI, for the most part, has been treated like software, where software is this, it's a tool that you use to get things done, right? You open ChatGPT and you say, I need to write an email and I need you to help me make it better. Right. And everyone does that. Or, hey, I wonder, who built the pyramids, and I'm going to
Right.
start asking, you're just using it as kind of this tool where you're asking it to do things. Where AI becomes infrastructure is where companies really start to soar, where AI becomes embedded into different processes. And it could be a process as simple as, hey, AI now sends out all of our invoices, right? No human has to touch that. And that's amazing. That becomes a critical part of the business every month, where if you unplug that AI, it's no different than firing someone. If you
Mhm.
fire someone and you don't replace them, like who's doing that stuff, right? That stuff just doesn't get done. But now, as you start to build AI as infrastructure, where it becomes a critical part of the business that's running different tasks from finance to sales and marketing and operations and reporting and taxes and whatever, all the different things that need to be done inside of a business, if you set it up as infrastructure, not only do you become more efficient and cost efficient and productive, but you also become a little bit dependent on that. And so it moves over to that. So you have to take a very measured but purposeful approach to say, hey, we want to make AI infrastructure. And we've spent at our company, Gen API, we've had we work with companies to help them set up AI, right? I mean, we help it make, our tagline is, we make AI work for you, right? And that obviously has a couple meanings behind it. But ultimately, we want to just make it work in a way that actually makes a difference. And we try to set it up as infrastructure so that the CEO and the VP of sales and all these different people that are doing their jobs are saying, wow, AI is actually making my life easier. If you can say that, you're on your way to having proper AI infrastructure set up inside your company.
hmm So let's transition to, AI first system thinking. I'll think about this wrong question that I think some of my clients might ask me. How can AI automate this task? I think they're probably approaching it the wrong way. What should they be asking?
Well, so this is a fun topic. Let's move back to when engines were first created, right? A car engine.
Mm,
Before that, what would pull our carts?
horses.
Horses, exactly, right? And so when engines first came out, what did they call them? Horseless carriages. That's what it was. And so, there's this there were a bunch of companies at the time when that transition happened, and they were like horseless carriage, accessories, and they had all these different things, all these things to support horseless carriages, right? Where then you had Ford company come along and say, we're going to make a car. We're going to do something different. We're going to rethink the whole thing, right? I live in Utah. I don't know if you've ever been here and visited
Oh,
Zion National Park,
yeah, I
but
love it. Yeah.
it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But you may remember it, as you go through the park, you're driving and winding up these huge roads, right? And there's some switchback kind of roads that take you way up and whatever. And then you get to these outlooks and it's just gorgeous, right? But a lot of people are using AI in a way that um, basically takes the horseless carriage approach where we're saying we're gonna do the same thing, we're just gonna do it faster. So we're gonna still wind up those roads. We're just putting on a rocket booster so we go faster up those roads, which as you know would not do well. You might not make those turns in time. But the way you should be thinking about your processes is, okay, we have a whole new thing. Now we have rockets. Well, why don't we just fly up to the observation point instead of going up the road faster, right? And so you really have to think about, okay, what is the outcome that we're trying to get, right? Okay, we want to sell our product. Well, how have we done that in the past? Well, we have BDRs call people and we send automated emails and we automate our LinkedIn requests and all these things and we do this and eventually we get a meeting set up. Then a closer gets on and tries to talk to him and then we work with them for a few weeks and then eventually we get him to sign up for a trial and then we do this and that, whatever, boom, right? And so again, I'm taking kind of a software sales approach there, but the point is that's the way that it's always been done. And so now that we have AI, and things that could just be done in a way more automated fashion. Well, how can we get the person inside using our platform almost immediately? Maybe we build an AI assistant into the platform and we just give access for free to our platform to everybody. And then AI inside of the platform sells them as they set it up, right? It helps them, it guides them automatically so that we don't have to do this manual process faster, but it just is done in a totally different way. So define the outcome and then just say, all right, let's clean slate. Let's pretend we're founding this company today. How would we do it differently? Right? A lot of people try to retrofit, and sometimes that's more expensive than just rebuilding from scratch.
Yeah, that's a great segue. I was going to ask you, where do organizations get trapped trying to automate old workflows?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly there, right? It is really easy, especially when you're trying to integrate old tools, Like I work with clients all the time and I'll come in and one of the first things I'll ask them is, what do you do for your invoices and systems like that? And they'll say, and a lot of times they'll say QuickBooks Desktop. Okay. And QuickBooks Desktop obviously is not connected to the internet in the way that it needs to be. It doesn't have APIs. It has no way to automate anything, right? It's just
Right.
a tool that's installed the same way it was in 1973. It wasn't out then, but you
Right.
get my point, right? It's
Yeah.
just
Early
it's not
80s.
ready
Right.
for 2026, right? And so you have to say, okay, might be a little painful, but I think we need to switch off of QuickBooks Desktop instead of trying. Now, could you train an agent to like view the computer and use that? And yeah, AI is getting pretty smart these days, but holy cow, that is putting a crappy engine on a horse or on a carriage, right? And making a slow horseless carriage. What you should do is switch to, Mercury or some new amazing banking system that's totally, internet enabled. They don't even have physical locations or anything. And it's just all API driven and agents are ready to jump in and use it. Like that's the kind of system you should be jumping into. So So don't be afraid to go and buy the amazing new systems that people are building that have been developed over the last couple of years. They're thinking about these problems. They've already solved them for you. And so don't go and try and reinvent the wheel or try to pull the wheel up to, the wheel that was invented a long time ago, up to today's standards. Just sometimes it's worth it to switch systems.
hmm So let's talk about, redesign before automation. Why do so many leaders often focus on tools, before redesigning their current systems?
Yeah, I mean, look, garbage in, garbage out. That's something that people know, right? And a lot of times when we go into a company, the first thing we do is we'll spend a month just saying, all right, where's the data?
Right.
Where does it live? And we'll get 14 answers from different departments, right? And we'll say, okay, we need to standardize this because if it's scattered all over the place, you don't have real systems that are congruent across a company. You're just going to create a real, garbage plus AI equals spaghetti everywhere, right? It just makes it worse. It makes it way, way worse. So you have to align those systems and make it, you know, get it to where, okay, I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this. Hey, here's a decision. If this, then we're going to go that way. If this, then that way. And then, but it's still clearly defined throughout the whole process. If you can do that, if you can define every step throughout a process very clearly, AI can absolutely take it over.
hmm So, what should executives, redesign first? I'm thinking through what I currently do with my clients as I'm doing, management operating system implementation. Should it be the process? Should it be their decision-making tools? Should it be their governance or the culture? From your experience, you and your team, what should be the first thing to go after first?
You mentioned a lot of different things there. The two things that really stuck out to me are process and culture, right? Process needs to be defined, and that's just an ongoing project that needs to be happening. And some companies are better than others, but most companies really are not in a great stage. But culture matters a lot too. One thing that has to be really made clear, and you need to do this, you need to establish this as a leader first, is the purpose of AI is not to replace people. The
hmm
purpose of AI is to enhance people, right? So, what are the things that our people can do that AI can't do? Great, let's redesign jobs and process around those things. Then let's figure out what AI can do. And so don't look at it as jobs, look at it as tasks. And then, you break that down and then you create new jobs, right? The reality is most companies we work with end up hiring more people because they end up doing more because AI enabled them to do that. Now, that's not an overnight process. It takes 6 months or something to start to see some of that growth really hit. But because just sales processes and things like that take time. But as you bring more customers on, guess what? Customers want to talk to people. They don't want to talk to machines. They don't want to talk to agents. They want to be taken care of, right?
Right.
Um, you take a very simple example. If you go to a McDonald's and you see in the back an employee, flipping burgers, that's cool. But what if you go there to that McDonald's and a machine or a robot is flipping those same burgers, right? Now that person that was flipping burgers can come out and talk to you, can greet you, can ask you how you're doing, can ask how the food is, what can we do better? Whatever. That person is freed up to do more human things to make the experience better, to maybe experiment and create new types of burgers. I don't know if people at McDonald's are given the leeway to create their own products. But you get the point, you get the picture
Right.
here, right? If you let the robots do robotic things and the AI do repetitive, mundane, boring process things, that frees up humans to have opportunity to create and communicate and get feedback and put their arm around you and see how you're doing and really like engage with each other as humans. That's what we want to do. We want to be having these discussions just like you and I are now. That's why I hate reading AI written social media posts. I get on LinkedIn and I see it's AI written. I'm gone. I'm to the next post. I have no interest, right? And the problem is, I think a lot of people do just say, "Hey, AI, write my posts." But a lot
Right.
of people, maybe you and your, write a thought down and you take it into ChatGPT or Claude and you say, "Hey, make this better." That's okay. That's
Right.
totally okay. But you can usually see the difference, right? If it's pure AI, whatever. And so you got to be careful. People want to learn and interact with people, and that's ultimately what we're going for here.
hmm Now, as we were doing research about some of your, previous lectures and things you've written about, you talk
Mhm.
about small teams, bigger impacts. Now bring this to scope as, as we're working with leaders, what leadership skills become more important, in the AI-enabled organization?
You know what's interesting is these days anybody can be a software engineer, right? Like with vibe coding. Like I am not a developer and I don't know how to write a single line of code. Zero, right?
Really?
I can't write a single line of code. If you said, John, I'll give you $1 million right now, if you can just type into the chat any line of code, I would miss out on that $1 million. I cannot do it. It's not my skill set. Now, what I do understand though is systems. I understand why Salesforce needs to speak to LinkedIn, why those databases need to talk to each other, and why this needs to happen there. So I just understand how the data fits together. And ultimately, that's what leaders need to be thinking about today. They need to be thinking in systems. They need to understand why different things fit together. And one of the best ways to do that is to go and pick a vibe coding platform. I personally like a platform called Replit. I've built probably 200 apps in there. I'm a top 1% developer in Replit. Again, I'm not a developer, but I'm developing, right? I don't know
Right.
how to write the code, but I can build tools that are just amazing. I can build a tool that, I might sometimes I sit down to a task and I'm like, this task can take me like 4 hours. There's no way I'm doing this. And I jump into Replit and I say, build me a tool really quick that does this, 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 and this, and completes this task for me. Okay, done. 10 minutes later, I've built a tool. I built a tool. I've told an AI to build a tool, and then I upload a document into it and I say, hey, oh, the output wasn't right. Change it so that it does this. Make sure you account for this. So I'm just telling it what I want the outcome to be, and then it does all the work. And so I think leaders today need to understand what's possible. They need to understand that if you just understand the outcome you're going for, you can build unbelievable tools and enable your entire team to be able to build tools that can make your company work so much faster and so much better. And that's a big thing we do with companies is we'll go in and we'll teach them all. We'll take them through a training and within 2 hours, you know, everyone's building apps. People that have never thought that they could do that, and they realize, oh my gosh, I all I have to be able to do is describe it, right? Like a 9-year-old can do this, and I know that because I have a 9-year-old that does it. I have 4 kids, and my youngest kid is 9, and he's building software with AI, and he's building games, of course, right?
Right, right.
But 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 he's doing it, and all he does is say, I want the guy when I double click on space, I want it to jump higher. Okay, cool. The AI takes care of coding that and knows how to put the code and implement it, and it works. And it's no different for a 9-year-old building a game versus a 35 or a 70-year-old building, uh, an analytics system or a new CRM for your clients because you don't want to pay Salesforce,
Right.
$18,000 per employee every year.
So with that said, because I know you deal with a lot of clients, and you deal with a lot of folks who have old school, legacy,
Mhm.
management traditional, policies. Which traditional management policy, becomes obsolete first that you try to teach them to change their paradigm, how they manage their business.
One thing, I don't know if this answers the question, but I think it might. One thing I encourage leaders to do when I go in is I say, like, this has to come from you. It can't come from me. But I want you to challenge your employees to replace themselves with AI,
Mm,
right? See if you can train an AI to do your entire job so you could go golf all day long and your job still gets done, right? A lot of employees are afraid to do that. And you have to create the right financial incentive and structure to make that work well. But most CEOs are like, look, if you do this, it's going to end well for you. You're going to become my most valuable employee because you understand how you built systems to make all that happen and work. And so it's amazing what happens when you enable your employees to break the system, to reinvent the system, because they're the ones in it, right? And then if you give them, they're all so smart and so creative, right? And if you just say, look, just go see if you can do it, and then report back to your leadership, right? Report back to your manager, to whatever, set up an AI person. We usually, when we work with companies, we put a fractional chief AI officer into the company that helps guide these processes and things like that. And so they'll say, yeah, go show it to John's team, go show it to Gen AI PI and see what they think and see how you can do this. But man, it's so cool when you empower all of the employees and say, look, I want you to try and figure out how to reinvent this company. And when you do, there's going to be real results. You're going to get stock in the company. You're going to get a $10,000 a year pay raise. You're going to be made manager of this department, whatever, right? You also separate a little bit of wheat from the chaff by because there's going to be some people that say, I don't want to touch that. That's not for me. I don't want to do that. Right. And then other people are like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. Well, I mean, which employee is going to last at your company? Which one do you want at your company? Right. And so, those are fun activities. I don't encourage CEOs to go around and fire people because of AI. In fact, like I said, I try to help CEOs implement AI in a way that grows the company and helps everybody make more money because you're more efficient and you have more time. But ultimately, there are going to be some people that are, for whatever reason, they just don't want to use AI, and that's up to them. But they're going to fall behind. They're going to go the way of Blockbuster.
Right, right. Now, earlier on, you mentioned junk in, junk out. So I'm thinking about some of my clients. How does AI expose weaknesses that organizations, have been ignored, for years?
Consistency. Consistency of output is usually what happens, right? If you ask AI to do something and it gives you the answer 5, and then you ask it to do the same thing again and it gives you the answer 6, that's 20% off, right? Okay, great. Well, obviously something's wrong, right? Some sort of data isn't there. But if you're getting the same answer consistently over and over again, your data is probably pretty good. And the structure is probably pretty good. And so that's really how you stress test it, right? And you have humans, check it, right? The human goes in and figures out, this is the system you need to do. This is what needs to happen. And then you know, uh, you check it and you have a human say, this is right or this is wrong. And, after you do that enough times, I don't know if you've ever driven a Tesla or a self-driving car,
No, not
right?
yet.
I remember the first time I did, I put it in, autopilot and, let it go. But you know what I did? I had my hands right here, right? I'm like I'm, if this is my steering wheel, right? Like my hands right here, ready to grab on. And, it comes up to a busy intersection. You're like, are you sure you know how to do this? And just about to turn left. And you're like, I'm ready. My foot's right on the brake, right? And then after I see it do it 20 times in a row perfectly, I'm like, I'm good. Now I'm checking my phone and sending emails or talking to people and whatever. And I'm totally comfortable sitting in there like I'm in a plane, right? It just does it. But that's how you have to do it with AI, right? You have to kind of gonna be right there. And oh, you know what? And I've been through the cool thing is I've been through like the early days of self-driving where it didn't always get it right. And so you did have to be like, oh, I'm gonna take over here. Or oh, those are construction cones and oh, it doesn't see that stuff, doesn't see that debris. I'm gonna do this, or there's a crash and I'm gonna, anyway. So but eventually you get to the point where you say, okay, the system's got it. Next project.
Mhm. Now, I have this segment what we call Monday morning leadership. Comes back from my sports days of, Monday morning quarterbacking. Uh, if you were advising a CEO, like I said, my client base is really manufacturing companies.
Mhm.
You're going to advise them tomorrow and say, hey, first three things I want you guys to assess, before investing in AI. Which those three things be?
You gotta but before you put any sort of automation on any system, like I said, we've talked about this a lot, right? You got to make sure you know where the data is, right? Got to make sure that you have processes in place. It's data, processes, and then people, right? Are there people that know the systems that can teach the AI, that can help it and can guide it? And that's oftentimes what these people are going to do is they're not going to lose their job. They're going to have AI start doing what they used to do, and they're going to now be the supervisor of agents, right? That are then doing the job. And what that's going to allow them to do is they're going to be able to do 1,000% more. Because if one agent can do it, well, why not spin up 10 agents to do the same thing? And it depends, right? You don't need to send unlimited invoices, but maybe you do need to send unlimited marketing emails, or maybe you do need to, maybe it would be awesome if you could spin up multiple types of things. And one of the cool things about manufacturing plants, and by the way, I would never claim to be a manufacturing expert, but I do understand at least the basics there. And I actually talked to I was on a podcast actually earlier today about or by the guy does a podcast for like machining shops, right?
Right.
And so very similar, but one of the things that's cool is a lot of these machines have, especially the newer ones, they have all kinds of cool outputs and automations and things, and you can digitally connect to them and understand the data and all that stuff, and you can build really really cool stuff. You can build cool dashboards and systems and analytics and things that help you interpret all these things that all these machines are doing and help them even talk to each other, right? And so that's something that's really cool. But ultimately, it's data processes and people, and you got to figure out a really solid inventory of what you have there. And that's a lot of what we do as well, right? We'll come in and we'll help, measure all of that stuff and work with leadership to figure those things out, and then we help implement. But that's restart. It's no different. AI is no different than any other implementation or change management of any other software or anything you're trying to do. Have you read The Goal or listened to that?
No, I haven't. I don't believe I have. And I got my
Fantastic.
books behind me, but I don't believe it's on
I know, yeah,
my
you
bookshelf.
look like a fairly well-read person, but no, The Goal is by what's his name? It's The Theory of Constraints. Um, yeah, Eliyahu Goldratt and Jeff Cox.
Yes,
Anyway,
I have the executive summary in my Kindle. Yes.
amazing. I recommend listening to it. Don't read it. Listen to it. It's a great audible because what it is he actually goes through it's like a drama, but it happens at a manufacturing company, right? So I've learned a lot about manufacturing just by listening to this book, but it's all about how to optimize for the best outcomes in your line of work. This is must, like, buy it on Audible and listen to it over the next couple of days. It's really, really good.
Oh yeah, I
So
think I got 6 credits, so that'd be easy,
do
easy
it.
purchase after our show. Now let's talk about, one, practice I need my clients to start doing immediately, with regards to their leadership. What would you recommend to them? Stop this immediately, guys. Because you're hurting yourself and not making it to the next decade of, AI, adoption.
Don't fight it. Don't fight it at all. Like, just say, look, we got to embrace it, figure it out, right? There's so many reasons why you could try to justify not going and using the best and latest and greatest tools. There's too many tools. I can't keep up with it. We don't have the right people on our team. We're a manufacturing business, so we don't need it, whatever. Let me tell you what, if I were starting a company today, a manufacturing company, right? And there's tons of people out there that are starting manufacturing companies. They're starting from ground zero, right? You've been around 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. They're going to eat your lunch
Mm.
because they're going to be able to do everything 30% cheaper. Straight up, they'll have minimal overhead. They're going to start from ground zero. So my business, I started it by myself solo and took it to $1 million by myself in 6 months. $1 million in my pocket by myself because I used AI to do it. And I had all these AIs running systems and all these things making it work for me. And so marketing, sales, operations, invoices, banking, everything, I had AI managing it all. And that allowed me to spend all of my time working on human relationships that then drove business, right? And those human relationships are what matter most. And so you've got again, I'm not a manufacturer, but there's smart manufacturers, people that are out there, people that have worked for your companies for many years. And they say, you know what? We have so many inefficiencies here at this company. I'm going to go start my own and I'm going to use AI because I've been using it in my free time and I've figured all this stuff out. Enable your people, give them permission, give them incentives to figure it out, right? And if you want to hire someone like us to come and help manage that process, fantastic. We're happy to do that. We can work with any type of company you can imagine, and we have. But it starts with you. It starts with you as the leader. You have to say, look, we're not going to hide from this. We're going to dive. We're going to go all in. We're going to do it for the purpose of making our people better, for helping make our people more money, for helping make our customers get a better product. You could do it for all the right reasons, right? A lot of people really got in this trap of, like, because we saw these headlines like Salesforce cuts 40% of its staff or 10% of its staff. Amazon cuts, 800,000 jobs due to AI. Okay, those make headlines, but a lot of those companies actually came back and said, I think we did this wrong. We had to hire a bunch of these people back, right? And so, these companies, I don't think they were trying to be bad. I think they were trying to do what the shareholders wanted them to do. I think they're trying to stay with the times. They're trying to just be a good manager. But the reality is, you can't ignore this one. This is bigger than sliced bread. You got to keep up with this one.
So John, where can my listeners, connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously go to our website, genaipi.org, Gen with a G, General AI Proficiency Institute. But you'll find all kinds of great stuff on there, good resources. There's a lot of free resources on there, as well as, you can get in touch with our team. If you want to just follow me, I'm on LinkedIn under Jon Cheney. Come and follow me. And then if Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, those kind of things, at Cheney Piano. I've got a piano behind me right here. those of you that are watching. But anyway, so I'm a pianist, but at Cheney Piano, and I post about AI on LinkedIn. I'm posting about tons of AI stuff and whatever. But you'll even see me posting kayaking pictures and some piano stuff and whatever, even on LinkedIn. I'm a very I I am a complete person on all of my platforms. I try not to be like, oh, this is the platform where I'm a pianist, and this is the platform where I'm an AI entrepreneur, and this is whatever. Anyway,
Right,
but
right.
anyway, I try to just do it all. But yeah, would love to say hi and reach out. Would love to chat. Love to help you figure things out.
Now, John, we end every episode, with a question, we'll close on your answer. So this week's question is, what's the one leadership lesson you hope organizations remember as they enter the AI era?
Speed matters. Speed is something that AI brings. Time is money. No question, right? Those of you that are working in manufacturing plants right now, right? How fast you can push out a part and then move that part to the next step and then get it all the way through to a finished product that's ready to be sold. That matters. If you can speed that up, you're going to take that opportunity, and that matters in every corner of your business, not just the physical. Hey, we're doing this, we're machining this thing, and then we're doing this and attaching this piece, and it's not just the physical stuff. Everything matters, and even something as simple as I need to prepare a report for my leadership team, right? Well, you could
Mhm.
just do it the way you've been doing it and, dig through a bunch of things and work your brain and stay up late or you can figure out how to use amazing systems, drop it all into there and say, these are the types of things I want to point out and build me a really nice interactive website that allows us to look through this together during our meeting. And all of a sudden, first of all, you did what used to take 8 hours. Now it only took you 1 hour, and your output is 10 times better. Now, instead of just a boring PowerPoint, it's an interactive website with sliders and assumptions and things you can play with and all this stuff. If you can learn how to use those tools to do that, your business will just change so fast. You'll have so much more time, right? You went from 8 hours to 1 hour. What are you going to do with those 7 hours? Go fix the next problem. Go find the next constraint. And that is just fun, right? For me, that's fun. Speed is something that I love, right? Not just on the road, but just getting things done. I love to say I need to do something. It's done now. Okay. Right. It just feels good. And AI lets you do that if you know how to use it right.
Oh, fantastic. Well, John, thank you for having, being part of our show. I'm sure my listeners going to have tons of questions, so I'll definitely forward the questions over to you, and maybe, we'll do a follow-up podcast in the future, answer some of their questions. So thank you again for making time for us.
Thanks so much, Lanier.
Take care now.
The Gen AIP doctrine outlines a specific perspective on where the real danger of this era lies. They argue that the greatest risk is not the loss of jobs to automation, but the loss of human agency and the ability to adapt within an organization. When AI takes over the mundane infrastructure, it forces humans to move into higher roles, acting as systems thinkers, strategists, and creative leads. Cheney encourages employees to actively use AI to replace their own repetitive tasks, redirecting their energy toward purposeful creation and judgment. Ultimately, the future belongs to leaders who build internal AI capability and empower their people, rather than those who outsource their long-term strategy to consultants. A special thanks to BMC Software AI Solutions, helping companies achieve operational excellence through workflow automation. Thank you to LinkedIn Premium, a critical tool for hiring and skill building in a growth season. And thank you to Fundrise's Innovation Fund, VCX, providing regular investors access to pre-public tech companies. To learn more, visit karaswininnovations.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and a special thanks to executive producer Lanier Johnson.